So my name is Michael Glynn. I'm a consultant in gastroenterology and hepatology at an organisation called Barts Health, which is a group of hospitals across central and east London, including St Bartholomew's Hospital, which is probably the oldest hospital in the world, coming up for its 900th anniversary, and the Royal London Hospital, which is 2 miles away, and it has just passed 250 years of life, and we have some associated district hospitals. I've worked there for more than 35 years. Up until 2015, I was also a general physician responsible for the admission of acute medical emergencies, and I did that for more than 25 years. So I have very wide experience of clinical medicine. Being a teaching hospital, I've been involved in teaching students all that time. And I've also been heavily involved with postgraduate training, organising training for SHO level, so the sort of second and third year of qualification. And then for 5 years as director of the local foundation school, which in the UK manages the first 2 years of closely monitored training after qualification. I'm an endoscopist, I do clinical nutrition, so I have a wide clinical base on which to base the educational activity. I've written publications, research publications all through my career and an MD thesis. The direct involvement with Hutchison was from the fact that Hutchison himself was a physician at the London Hospital as it was prior to being made royal. And the tradition is that all the writers and editors have always worked at the Royal London or associated hospitals. Having a group of authors who all work together, know each other well, know each other's practice, are constantly interchanging ideas, makes for a book that's very well coordinated and not at all disparate. So my editorship came from being asked to join the team by my predecessor, Dr. Michael Swash, who was a physician and neurologist who had edited a number of the previous editions. The process of producing a new edition is a strange one because the basic tenets of history taking and examination and the preparation of a differential diagnosis actually, of course, never changes very much. The approach of a one-to-one interaction with a patient in their individual circumstances is the absolute pillar of clinical medicine. It's hard to see that will ever change, even if the background method changes. So in the pandemic working, we've got much more used to telephone and remote working, but the basic principles of what we do are exactly the same. On the other hand, it is important to refresh the book each time to keep it new and up to date, particularly in the process of differential diagnosis and how we go about sorting out a patient. What different technologies do we use? What have we discarded? How do we do things simpler and quicker? And also more patient-friendly. We have taken the opportunity, what we thought was an absolutely essential opportunity, if you like, to introduce an appendix to describe clinical features of COVID-19. So I think that's a tremendous appendix written by one of our consultant virologists. Obviously, the field of COVID-19 moves extremely quickly, but I think it does give an extremely good overview of this extremely important happening since the last edition. We rely on the authors. All the authors are involved in teaching medical students, so they understand what is needed and how basic things need to be. We as editors keep a very close overview, so we have all read, both editors have read the whole thing cover to cover, and that keeps a very close rein on the content and to make sure it's uniform and pitched correctly. And I would also say, of course, the book is not only for medical students, it is a reference book for the whole of medical career. We would be delighted if training doctors and fully trained doctors are referring to it at any stage to check up and refresh things that they need to know. There are basically two ways. So the student may wish to read it from cover to cover in the order in which it's written. That would take quite a long time. And if they were doing that at the beginning of their journey, they might find a lot of it unfamiliar, a lot of unfamiliar words and phrases and concepts. Certainly the first section on the approach to the patient could probably be done in that way, because that is very basic, and it's the sort of thing you need to know literally when you meet your first patient as a medical student. The chapters can be read individually. There is some cross-referencing, but that's kept to a minimum. So they are standalone. So if the student is on an attachment to ophthalmology or to elderly medicine or to gynecology, those chapters are immediately relevant, and they can be read, they are perfectly manageable for an attachment of a few weeks to a particular specialty, and will give an extremely good overview. And of course, the student can refer individually. It's well indexed, so if they want to look up a particular feature, a particular symptom, a particular physical sign, they can access that through the index and read around that particular concept or something they haven't understood in their day's teaching. There is so much more out there. There is Google, there are online resources, there are fantastic online medical textbooks. And I think the student benefits from a range. They shouldn't read Hutchison alone. They'll learn a huge amount by doing so, but they do need to look at things in different ways. But not losing sight of the traditional, I think, is very valuable. It does give you something different. If you read a single chapter, it would give you an overview of that subject that would be difficult to get from these more selected online resource that the student tends to dip into these days.